All right, let's go ahead and we got through the forecast. Let's take a minute here and break down some great DFS options for you with our special guest, Chris Meany.
The Daily Dose.
The fantasy footballers are joined once again by the meanest, by the leanest, Chris Meany of the Fantasy Sports Network. We're going to talk some DFS strategies, guys he likes, guys he maybe doesn't like, get some values on that on the FanDuels. So let's get it done. What's going on, Chris?
Good. That was a pretty good intro, I must say. I've never heard that one before. I heard like eeny, meeny, miny, mo, big meanie, but I'm a big fan of that one.
Well, I hope that your physique can match my interpretation of your name at the beginning there. So here we go. We'll start at the top. Big name quarterback guys that cost the big quiche. Who do you like?
Yes. This is an Aaron Rodgers week. I like him. I'm paying up. He's the most expensive quarterback on the board, 9-2. I'm not too worried about it. There's a lot of values that I'm sure we can get to where you can just afford to have Aaron Rodgers in there. I mean, even I guess we could call it garbage time against Carolina. He ended up with almost 34 FanDuel points, 33.96. This game, back at Lambeau, playing Detroit, a team that struggled. Green Bay coming off a couple losses now. I think this is a statement game. So I'm willing to pay up for Aaron Rodgers. And then, his wide receiving core is pretty cheap. Randall Cobb is 7-7, finally had a good game. Devontae Adams had 11 targets last game. He's only 5'8". So I like that if you want to pair him up with either Cobb or Devontae Adams. I'm going to continue to pay for Todd Gurley. I think this is a terrific matchup against the Bears, 9-2. And again, there's some other values out there where you can afford to really have Gurley and Rodgers in your lineup.
And what do you think about this stack? Because I'm loving it this week. Mr. Beebe, Blake Bortles, and Allen Robinson. How do you feel about that?
I love it.
Yes,
I love
right,
it. A huge fan. How could you not be? I mean, Bortles doesn't get the credit because he throws some picks. I mean, this guy's not afraid to throw the ball. Jacksonville's not, you know what, they're always down in games, so he's not afraid to sling it. He's only $7,800. I looked at his FanDuel points, 22, 25, 29, 19, 17, 21. This guy hasn't been over $8,000 yet this year. The only bad game he really had was 2 weeks ago against Buffalo. He had 13 FanDuel points against a tough defense. This is a great matchup against Baltimore. I love his wide receivers, and Allen Robinson, only $7,500. Even Hearns at 73. I know he's banged up. He's got the foot injury. I expect him to play. He's got a touchdown in like 6 straight games. So I'm a huge fan of that stack option, definitely 100% on board.
All right, let's talk some other running backs. Besides Gurley, who do you like? Do you like maybe a DeMarco Murray against Miami, or how about Forsett on the other side of the ball in that Jacksonville game? Forsett against Baltimore, or against Jacksonville.
Forsett's nice because, again, there's no Steve Smith Sr. This is a guy who's going to get a lot of the targets. He may even lead the league or lead the Ravens in targets that game as a running back. It's pretty special. You mentioned DeMarco Murray. I think we're on the same page here with Bortles and that stack. I love DeMarco Murray as well. $7,700. This is... he's got 20 FanDuel points, at least 20 FanDuel points in 3 of his last 4 against Miami, 142.1 yards per game. That's how many yards per game they're allowing, which is the second most to running backs this season. And the Bills, they had 2 100-yard rushers against them last week. So I like DeMarco Murray. That run game has looked pretty good in Philadelphia. I think LeGarrette Blount is worth a play as well at 6'9". You never know what you're going to get with Blount. But I think now, he's going to be the focal point. And every time this guy's had about 17, 18 carries, he's ended up with about 70, 80, at least 70, 80 yards. And you just hope that he can find the end zone. Jeremy Langford is interesting as well because his price is 6-2 at St. Louis. The prices were already established on FanDuel before that Monday night game against the Chargers. And Langford was really good in that game. Ended up with over 20 points. I know it's tough against St. Louis, but at that price point at 6-2, you almost have to just play him. Just try him out in a couple lineups, because if FanDuel would have saw how well he did Monday night, that price would have been probably around 7-6 like it is for D'Angelo Williams, who is another great play as well. 7-6, going to be heavily owned, but why not have him out there going up against Cleveland, who allows the most rushing yards per game at 147.6. So those are a couple other backs that I do like as well.
If you had to choose this week between LeGarrette Blount and James Starks, who would you go with?
I would go Blunt. I really would. Starks, I know that he's the starter now. McCarthy wants to roll him out, and Lacey has just looked awful. They're both $6,000 against Detroit. I do obviously like Starks more than Lacey, but I would roll out Blunt more just because I'm just banking on maybe a heavier workload and New England putting up more points and just maybe a goal line touchdown from Blunt.
What kind of at the tight end position, what are you looking to do?
The tight end position, I still don't mind Benjamin Watson at 5'5". I think that the Saints could have their way with that Washington secondary. I know Drew Brees is a different quarterback on the road. I like Delaney Walker. We saw last week, Delaney Walker is a big, with no Kendall Wright, he's a big part of that offense, for Mariota to throw the ball. Just Tyler Eifert to me he's so nice to pass up. I mean, 6'2" is not. He's the third most expensive tight end on the board, but if you look at Gronk, he's 8,000. You look at Eifert, he's 62. I mean, the touchdowns have been there. He's just leading the league in touchdowns. So Tyler Eifert is a guy for me that I'm willing to roll out there almost, every single week. A couple wideouts that are fairly cheap that maybe we can get to. Landry, I'd like at $7,000 against Philadelphia. Now, the corners in Philly and the safeties have been surprisingly pretty good this season, but Cole Beasley ate them up last week in the slot. Had 11 targets, 112 yards, 9 catches, 2 touchdowns. I think Jarvis Landry could do a little bit of damage in that Philadelphia game at $7,000. And I don't understand Michael Crabtree. Why is his price not changing? Finally, it's now in the $6,000 range. This is a guy I think that I've talked to you. I may have mentioned him to you guys almost every single week, and the people are asking if I have a crush on him, and I may. The last 2 games, 24 targets, 14 catches, 200-plus yards, and 2 scores. It's a tougher matchup against Minnesota, but he continues to get it done every single week. Play Crabtree.
I think that Andy is the one setting the price for Michael Crabtree because he hates him so much.
Really? And you know what? I did too going into this year because I was a big believer in him in San Fran.
I don't hate him anymore. I have eyeballs. I can see the field, but I mean, it just took a while. You mix Michael Crabtree's career with him being on the Raiders. You're telling me you saw good things?
No, I agree. No, I did not see good things. And this is a guy that I also hated because there was so much upside with him in San Francisco. I always gave the benefit of the doubt to Colin Kaepernick. I said, these two can figure it out. Crabtree had issues obviously staying on the field, but you know what? Right now, Derek Carr looks phenomenal. And this is another guy that I would play too. I mean, $7,500. Again, a tougher matchup. He's only $7,000 last week against that Steelers defense. But again, $7,500, I wouldn't mind it at all. I mean, we were talking about New England. Brandon LaFell had 9 targets last week too. He's only $6,200, so he's a sneaky little play as well.
That's fantastic work, as always, by Chris Meany of the Fantasy Sports Network. How can people get a hold of you on the Twitters?
Yeah, you can give me a tweet at Chris Meany, Meaney. Getting a couple questions already this week, DFS, so I'll be happy to answer them. Hopefully I can help some people out. I know I told somebody called me a genius, and then I was like, listen, let's hold that talk for a little bit because I told somebody to play Robert Woods over Sammy Watkins, and that did not work.
Whoops.
Oh, it happens to the best of us.
It happens. Yeah, it happens. So hopefully more right than wrong. But Ed, feel free. Anybody out there want to ask a DFS question or just a regular question, I'm always available.
Thanks a lot.
All right, Chris. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Thanks, guys, for having me. Enjoy the football.
Thanks again to Chris Meany for joining us every week. Good information, good insight into the DFS world. A lot going on, obviously, in the DFS kind of it's in everybody's public consciousness now with all of the different things going on. Did you guys have any brief thoughts about the New York situation? I mentioned yesterday that we're going to have a rep on to talk a little bit about that and get players informed about what's taking place. He's not able to come on today, so we'll have that early next week. But do you guys have any general quick thoughts? I mean, I'm sure people want to hear from us. What's going on? So
here's the quick thoughts and the rundown. The Attorney General of New York sent a cease and desist letter to FanDuel and DraftKings. From what we know, FanDuel and DraftKings are both going to fight this because it was not a court order. You are forced to shut down. They're going to continue as normal, and it's a really polarizing thing because you have look at the sponsorships of FanDuel and DraftKings. They're everywhere. And I heard on my way into work today, the Nets are going to continue to advertise FanDuel. However,
in the Jersey,
Brooklyn,
in
Brooklyn, they're going to just keep advertising. But at Madison Square Garden, they are removing all DraftKings. So not even the teams can agree on what to do. I know there's a rally today going on in New York. I heard it was a good turnout in front of the Attorney General's office, letting him know
that people want to play. People want to play and worry about something else.
Yeah, and this is kind of like let's be frank and honest. We live, like guys like us get to do our jobs and provide this entertainment and this source of information for the Foot Clan because of companies like FanDuel and DraftKings. So if you want to show your support and sign the petitions that are online, I personally encourage that because I like to do what I do. And I think people have the right to play.
I believe, and I'm going to verify it real quick, the URL for that petition is fantasysportsforall.com. That's where they're bringing people together. So anything you want to add, Jason, or should we close it out?
No, I think you guys covered it. Seems like mostly a publicity play from an attorney general for now because it's in the news, and now people who didn't know his name know his name.
It's interesting because really what's taken place is it's kind of the growth of fantasy sports, the amount of people that play it. I mean, I think it's 50 million Americans play fantasy sports every year. Because of the increase in popularity of something, which verifies it's fun, right? Like people like it, so this many people are playing it. That also, the notoriety of it gets out there, and people start hearing about it, and then they say, well, what's going on? What is this? What is that? And there's a lot of misinformation and lack of information about what takes place and questions from people. And so that's why we want to have somebody on to kind of answer some of those that isn't us. But that's kind of where we're sitting with the whole thing going on. And there's a lot of wait and see taking place right now, right?
Yep.
So, okay, that does it for today's show. Thank you for listening to another week of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Check out our website, jointhefoot.com and thefantasyfootballers.com if you want to connect with us.
Make some bets and download the Water Wheel app.
Oh, yeah, pay those out.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.